You're fun at parties. You can hold a room. People would describe you as social, warm, easy to talk to. Your coworkers like you. Your friends think of you as outgoing, and you have genuinely never struggled to make conversation with a stranger. On paper, on every external measurement available, you read as an extrovert. And yet, Sunday evening after a full weekend of people, you feel like someone quietly unplugged you from the wall. Not sad, not antisocial, just completely bone-deep drained. Like your internal battery didn't just run low, it ran out. And all you want, more than almost anything, is a room by yourself, total silence, and absolutely no requirement to be anything for anyone for at least 48 hours. Sound familiar? Because if it does, you might be living with a case of secret introversion. And today we're going to go into what that actually means, why it happens, and, most importantly, why you've probably been misreading yourself for years. Let's start by dismantling the single most widespread misconception about introversion, because it's responsible for most of the confusion. The misconception is that introversion means shyness, that it means being quiet, withdrawn, socially anxious, bad at conversation, that it's a social deficit dressed up in psychological language. And this is wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. Introversion and shyness are not the same thing, and they never were. Shyness is anxiety around social situations, a fear of judgment, of saying the wrong thing, of being seen unfavorably. You can be profoundly shy and deeply extroverted. You can be completely fearless socially and deeply introverted. The two dimensions operate on separate axes. Introversion has nothing to do with social competence or confidence. It has to do with energy. Here is the actual psychological definition, the one researchers work with, and the one that changes everything once you hear it. Introversion is a preference for environments with lower external stimulation. Extroversion is a preference for environments with higher external stimulation. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not confidence, not social ability, stimulation preference. And the reason this matters for people who are socially capable but privately exhausted is that you can be very good at high stimulation environments while still finding them genuinely costly. The skill is real, the cost is also real, and those two truths coexist in the same person all the time. Now here's the neuroscience because it's genuinely fascinating and it makes everything else make sense. Research into introversion consistently finds differences in the base levels of cortical arousal between introverts and extroverts. Hans Eysenck, one of the foundational figures in personality research, proposed in the 1960s that introverts have a naturally higher baseline level of arousal in the brain than extroverts. This means introverts reach their optimal stimulation threshold faster. Where an extrovert might need more input, more noise, more social energy to reach the level of activation where they feel good, an introvert's brain is already closer to that threshold before anything even happens. Add a full social event on top of that, conversation, eye contact, emotional reading, performance, navigation, and the introvert's brain tips past its optimal zone into overstimulation. Not crisis, not disorder, just overload. The battery metaphor isn't just a metaphor. It's a reasonable description of what's happening neurologically. There's also fascinating research around dopamine and acetylcholine, two neurotransmitters that play different roles in how rewarding social and environmental stimulation feels. Extroverts tend to be more responsive to dopamine, which surges in novel, stimulating, socially rich situations. The party, the crowd, the new person. Dopamine rises and the extrovert feels energized and good. Introverts, research suggests, are more sensitive to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter associated with quiet focus, internal reflection, and the reward of thinking deeply. Alone time, concentration, the interior life. These aren't just comfortable for introverts, they're genuinely rewarding in a neurological sense. The solitary Sunday morning with a book and no obligations is not the introvert white-knuckling through loneliness. It's their brain receiving the kind of input it finds most nourishing. So why do so many introverts not know they're introverts? This is the most interesting question in all of this, and the answer is almost entirely cultural. We live, particularly in Western and especially in American culture, in what author Susan Cain famously called an extrovert ideal. The cultural assumption that the best, most successful, most valuable human is bold, gregarious, comfortable in the spotlight, energized by people, quick to speak, always available, always on. School rewards participation. Work rewards visibility. Relationships reward expressiveness. The entire social architecture has been built with the extrovert as the default model. And so introverts, particularly those who are intelligent and adaptable, learn early that the world runs on extroverted norms, and they learn to perform them. Not dishonestly, not as deception, just as accommodation. You learn to code switch. You develop what psychologists call an extroverted persona, a practiced, genuine, functional social self that can perform in the environments the world requires. And you do it well enough that eventually, even you forget it's a performance. You look at the person you are at the party and you think, that's who I am. But the battery drain tells the truth. This is the secret introvert. Not someone who hides from people. Someone who genuinely engages with people and then needs a long, quiet time afterward that they haven't quite learned to account for or justify. Someone who says yes to social invitations while secretly already planning the recovery time they'll need after. Someone who is the first to leave a party not because they aren't having fun, but because they felt their energy threshold quietly cross over into the red 30 minutes ago, and they know from experience that the crash is coming. Someone who loves deeply and connects genuinely, and then needs to go be completely alone for a while, and has spent years feeling vaguely guilty about that need, as if it means something is wrong with them, as if the exhaustion after connection is a betrayal of the connection itself. It isn't. Let me say that very clearly. The need for solitary recovery after social engagement is not a sign that you didn't mean the connection. It is not ingratitude. It is not rejection. It is your brain's honest operating system doing what it was designed to do. The introvert who loves deeply and needs quiet after is not contradicting themselves. They are being completely consistent with how they're wired. There's a concept worth naming here called the introvert hangover, not a clinical term, but a widely recognized phenomenon in introvert communities that describes the specific exhaustion, overstimulation, and sometimes mild irritability that follows extended social periods. It can look like fatigue, difficulty concentrating, a kind of emotional flatness or blankness, a resistance to any further input, even from people you love. It's not depression. It's not antisocial personality. It's a nervous system that has been running in a high-demand mode for an extended period and is now requesting, urgently, the lower stimulation environment it needs to recalibrate. The introvert hangover is so consistent and so widely reported that its absence in popular psychological language says more about cultural bias than about its reality. Here's something that might reframe your whole relationship with this. Introversion is not a limitation on your social life. It's a parameter. There's a massive difference. A limitation says, you cannot do this. A parameter says, you can do this, and here is what it costs, and here is what you need afterward. Most secret introverts have spent years treating their wiring as a limitation, as something to push through, to overcome, to hide from others who might misinterpret it as rejection or coldness or fragility. But the reframe is this: you are not a broken extrovert. You are a fully functional introvert who has become very skilled at operating in an extroverted world. And that skill is real, and it is yours, and it is genuinely impressive. But it doesn't come free. The cost is the recovery time. And recovery time is not weakness, it's maintenance. Think about it this way. A long-distance runner doesn't apologize for needing rest after a marathon. They rest because they ran. The running was real. The effort was real. The rest is required, not optional, not a moral failing. The introvert at the party was fully there. The conversation was genuine. The laughter was real. The connection mattered. And then they need to go home and be quiet for a while because they ran a marathon, and the marathon was real. The rest is not a retreat from the people they love. It's how they get ready to go back. So what do you do with all of this? If you're someone who has been quietly confused about yourself, socially capable and privately drained, outwardly engaged and inwardly yearning for silence, the most important first step is simply permission. Permission to name it accurately. Permission to stop explaining the need for solitude as, "I'm just tired," when what you mean is, "I'm running on empty, and I need to be alone in a room without anyone needing anything from me." Permission to build recovery time into your life, not as a concession to weakness, but as competent self-management. The most sustainable introverts are not the ones who have learned to need less solitude. They're the ones who have learned to protect it unapologetically and schedule it deliberately. And here's the final thing. If you recognize yourself in this video, if the secret introvert description landed in a way that felt less like a discovery and more like finally having words for something you've known about yourself for a long time, I want you to sit with something. The very fact that you've been so good at adapting, so skilled at performing in environments built for a different kind of brain, so successful at moving through an extroverted world while carrying an introverted nervous system, that's not nothing. That's a kind of resilience. And the solitude you need? It's not absence of engagement. It's how you come back to people full instead of empty. Drop a comment and tell me, did this land for you? Were you already aware you were introverted? Or did something in this video shift how you see yourself? I genuinely want to know. And if this felt like the video you didn't know you needed, subscribe. Because at the Psych Spot, this is exactly what we do every single week. The real stuff. See you next time.